Hello, we are in Sarajevo in European Society of Criminology conference, and I would like to introduce Lithuanian criminologist Aleksandras Dobryninas. He is professor of sociology, head of Department of Criminology at the Institute of Sociology and Social Work, Faculty of Philosophy, Vilnius University. And me, Eglė Vileikienė, advisor of Ministry of the Interior, Republic of Lithuania. My acquaintance with Professor Aleksandras Dobryninas 20 years ago encouraged me to move away from sociology and turn to criminology. Professor was a supervisor of my doctoral thesis on the public attitude toward criminal justice in Lithuania. Now we are colleagues. However, I continued working in the area of applied criminology rather than theoretical one. I have been carrying out sociological and criminological research, consulting the law enforcement and executive branch of the Ministry of Interior on the issues related to the implementation of public safety and security policy. Today, I allow myself to be a bit more personal and biographical and ask Professor about his path in criminology, life achievement, professional challenges, his reflection on the past, present, and his vision of the future of criminology. So, Professor, you have obtained your first university degree in math. Could you please tell us about your educational path and why you have become a criminologist and when?
Okay, good questions. First of all, hello again. Actually, when I was a young man, I never thought that I became a criminologist. First time when I saw a criminological book, it was, of course, it's Soviet time, and it was a very strange title, test book on Soviet criminology. I just tried to read it and realized that it's absolutely nonsense. It's impossible to read and impossible to study it, and it's wasting of time. It's very boring. But later it happens that after graduating from university, I start to work at the Institute of Forensic Expertise. My work was connected with criminalistics, with application of mathematical methods in criminalistics. And in usage of IT technologies for code statistics, but at the same time we have a department of criminologists at the same institute, and young members of this institute just asked me to join their team and to do work, and they explained me that it's possible to apply mathematics into criminology. It was challenging for me. And by the way, my first criminological works appeared in 1980. It was devoted to what we call right now mapping analysis. I used mathematical methods for statistical methods for configuration and analyzing of distribution of crime in not in Lithuania, by the way, but in Latvia. It's happened. So, but at the same time, I got acquaintance with my first teacher in criminology, Professor Blusteins, and a bit later we wrote a book on logical and philosophical aspect of criminology. But before, in the gap between our first acquaintance and the book, I moved my direction from mathematics and criminology to philosophy. I became a professional philosopher, defended PhD in philosophy, but later I came back to the same issues, and from the publishing of mentioned book, I just stayed in criminology until now. So for me, I just remember what Niels Christie wrote about criminology. I found some a bit later that criminology is very boring science, but the problems so interesting, so deep, so attractive, that it was to work in this field. So I do.
Okay, thank you. Professor, your areas of interest and research in criminology are very broad. Could you tell us what themes, topics you had started with, and what are your key publications and why they are so important in Lithuania?
It's hard to say why my publication important. It's not my business, you know, to do assessment of my work. It's better if my students do it, or my colleagues. But main principles by working in criminology, it's of course the matter of interest. If I interested in something, I do it. I believe that academic freedom is not only just empty words. I believe it's an energetical principle for research. If you are not free in choosing your theme, choosing your object, it's really boring. But criminology, for me, at least it's a field where you can feel yourself free in choosing the theme. Of course, sometimes this theme belongs not only to you, but it comes from the society. For example, again, I mentioned this first our book on logical and philosophical aspect of criminology. It's come from obvious paradoxes in criminological discourse. For example, when we try to use different languages for describing, criminological facts. So, and it was very interesting for me what's happened, and when we tried to use linguistical analysis of chronological text, we realized that it's real classical Bertrand Russell's type paradoxes when we mixed so-called object language with meta language in criminology, and it was a theme that we find Professor Dobryninas realized in this book. Later, for example, I was very interested in media and crime research, but again, it's come from the publications. I saw what's going on, especially in the 90s, where where description of crime became bestsellers for local newspapers, and I just tried to ask myself why. What's happened, and what journalists want to do? Is they want to sell us the good product in terms of profit, or it's a kind of social civic duties to explain to the society what's going on with the safety and security in society. So. Again, this topic was of both interest. It's personal, and at the same time it was societal interest. After the same with corruption. It's funny to say, but on public discourse, corruption doesn't exist even. For example, before 2000 years, and after it became very much visible. What's happened? Why? And again, our research on corruption and new methodology for research, for example, the map of corruption. It's again come as say not only personal from the personal interest, but sometimes it's a reaction of needs of societies. Again, my last research is for example, in death penalty and trust and confidence in criminal justice also have the same structure. It's a combination of personal interest as a researcher and some kind of academic and social duties that we have to provide society, to provide so the specific institution with the knowledge about the real problems that exist in our society. So it's a source for my research and for choosing the themes.
Okay. So two decades ago, criminology in Lithuania has been perceived only as a branch of criminal law. You are one of these people who had contributed to unity the criminology and sociology sciences and established the bachelor and master degree programs at Vilnius University. So, could you tell us how have you achieved that nowadays in Lithuania politicians start more often look up and consider criminologists' opinion and advice?
I believe that when you ask about you, you have a plural form, not me, but me and my colleague.
Because my colleague.
Yes. But starting from the beginning, it's a really interesting phenomenon, and I discuss a lot about it. That criminology, by its nature, by its character, it's interdisciplinary study. If you look on foundators of criminology, there were no lawyer, no legal expert. Might be Benta in some sense. Neither Beccaria, no Lombroso or Ketle. They come from to this what we call right now criminological field from different disciplines, as economists, as medical doctors, as a statistician, and so on and so forth. Of course, and again, might be it's because of very big influence of famous Italian criminologist Ferri. So criminology became more and more legal studies, and at least in Europe continent, in European tradition, criminology are affiliated with criminal law, and sometimes it's treated as a sub-department or sub part of criminal law. But again, might be later we touch this theme. There are different approaches to criminology. For example, it's possible to raise criminological questions from psychological point of view, from sociological point of view, from political, from the point of view of political science, or even linguistic or philosophy, and so on and so forth. Again, it's an interdisciplinary field. I like a bit provocative explanation of Richard Spark, sorry, who says that criminology does not exist as a science. It exists as a field where scientists from different departments could come and work for criminological issues. Together, yes. Sometimes successful, sometimes not. But again, if you look at the history of criminology, you can find a lot of academicians who actually never identify themselves as a criminologist. Durkheim, Lombroso, who is the next Marathon, for example. Yes, Becker, both Becker, Howard, Gary. Again. So it's a field that actually much broader than for example the only legal field, and due to this fact, it was very important to look at criminology as an interdisciplinary field, and I believe that sociological approach is very close to this interdisciplinarity, because again, if you look at the history of sociology. And remember the work of Kant. So you remember that sociology was, or social physics in his first approach, was imagined as a field that actually covered all other sciences, hard sciences and social sciences, and from this point of view, it was very helpful for us, for Lithuanian criminologists, the opening of border when we restore independence, and we were more flexible with contact with Western criminologists. And I remember it was a big event for our university when our colleague Maeve McMahon from University of Toronto came to us and to teach, and she insisted very much that okay, Aleksandras, try to do sociological criminology at Vilnius University, and we started to do it. And in 1999, we already have a master degree program in criminology and sociology. At the same time, parallel, we have a program on psychology and criminology. And in 2008, we have a program, interdisciplinary study in criminology at Vilnius University. It was absolutely unique program in master level. We combine law department, psychological department, and sociological department working together on two different programs in in criminology. It was a unique experience, by the way, and of course our expertise in different field of social policy became visible. For example, in corruption, in abolition of death penalty, in prison reform, and so on and so forth. And again, it's became even obvious not only for example, for decision makers, but it's obvious even for criminal law professors and researchers that criminology should be interdisciplinary. They can treat criminology only from the law position. It's only one possible angle for taking criminological problems. So from this point of view, we were very successful in our project. So and we cooperated. We have a unique experience in cooperation between legal experts, sociologists, psychologists, economists. A lot of programs we ran on this interdisciplinary basis.
Okay. Your research had contributed to the abolishment of the death penalty in Lithuania in 1998. Later on, you discovered
Yes, it was discovered.
the problem of corruption in Lithuania. What do you think are the main professional achievement in the field of criminology which you are mostly proud of?
Oh, yes, I shouldn't be shy in this case. But what I really like, I'm not proud because I see a lot shortcomings in what I'm doing. If, for example, I do it again, I do it on the different level and with different methods and probably with different, let's say, conclusions. Not conclusions very much, but with different argumentation for my conclusions. But nevertheless, at least I learn a lot from this research, and I believe that a good research, it's not research that put answers on the problem, but a good research if it's arise new answers, new questions for further research. And from this point of view, of course, the book on logical and philosophical aspect of criminological knowledge was very important for me. I use some ideas from this book even now. So it's, It's unfortunately it's published in Russian, and probably for English-speaking audience it's about invisible. But for me and for those who actually who read this book and with whom I discuss this book, of course they got some basic ideas. It's maybe it's not something absolutely new. It's just new approach. It's at least for us it was new approach. Its approach comes from phenomenological sociology. It's phenomenological sociological approach to criminology, and further just go deeper and deeper with analysis of criminological knowledge, namely from this point of view. So you mentioned the project on abolition of death penalty. Also, it was very interesting, and again, it was supposed firstly that it's a political or legal problem. We can solve this problem only by these methods. But suddenly a politician realized that there is such an issue as a public opinion. So, and to lose confidence for among the voters, it's a political suicide, and they find themselves in a very strange position. From one point of view, European legislation requirements comes from the Council of Europe, require abolition of death penalty. From another point, when they saw on regular public opinion polls, about 80% of population for death penalty. And again, we come with our criminological knowledge in this case to look what's going wrong. Why are so afraid of public opinion? And I use just the idea of a famous British professor, Hood, who, in his analysis of public opinion poll, he advised, researchers that it's would be good to make a difference between just public opinion and just informed public opinion. And we do research where we put questions not only for just public opinion. For example, what do you think about the weather in Madagascar? Okay, it's nice, it's good. So what are you doing about the death penalty? Oh, of course, you should be restored. No, we have to inform a bit. Of course, it's again, if you look at methodology of sociological research, now this conditional question is not good. But we speaking. But again, it's question what we have to do with public opinion poll in criminal justice, or for example in criminology. Again, we have to go to the history of public opinion polls. It was equipment measurement firstly and primarily used for marketings, for evaluation of public relation on advertisement, on selling of goods and so on forth. And the question is a very important question. Do we have to use the same methodology for public policy research? Public policy research is the same as a marketing? We also sell and buy something in public policy, or we do something different? It's a fundamental question, by the way. And abolition of death penalty belongs not to the marketing. Abolition of death penalty belongs to the public policy. And we have to work with public policy research, and we have to configure our questions for public policy, but not for just selling and buying, some good ideas or some good slogans. So, and we just to modify questions. We put conditional questions. What do you for death penalty if, for example, a dangerous criminal would be isolated or resocialized and so on and so forth. And suddenly we get absolutely different results. So at least in some cases, about half of respondents was for abolition of death penalty in these conditional cases. So, and our result was we used in hearing of this case in Lithuanian Constitutional Court, and of course it's not only because of our research, but it's the argumentation we put it was at least was used in discussion in formulating final decision of court, and it's our attitude became visible not only for Lithuanians but also for the rest of Europe after we tried to share our experience in abolition process around Europe and also in the world, for example in Albania, in former Yugoslavia, in Armenia, Vietnam and China. So it's again, but what I learned for myself, I learned this very important element of informed opinion, and later I just to transform this idea and matches with again with phenomenological approach of Alfred Schutz, his famous idea about what we can call as epistemological stratification, where we try to fix social groups not according to their profession, age, or, for example, education, but according to their knowledge about their proximity to the problem. He advised us to look on different kind of knowledge, and at the same time of different kind of discourse, professional discourse of well-informed citizens, and discourse of what Schutz said as a man from the street. So, and until now we use this methodology now, qualitative and quantitative research, by the way, in Lithuania. So it's became so popular right now. Yes, it's what it's come from. Again, corruption also. So when we realize that we are corrupted, so there were a lot of waving flags against corruption, but question was again a question for policy research. If you have an enemy and you're against corruption, you want to fight corruption, do you know how your enemy looks like? Again, the traditional questions. Do you suppose that such and such institutions are corrupted? Yes, no, and so on. So the argumentation from other side, from the side, for example, of law enforcement, say, okay, it's not information, it's only opinion. Give us information about corrupt institutions and so on and so forth. Okay, it's what come to our mind first. It's victimological survey. So let's ask any possible victims about corruption, and we did a map of corruption in Lithuania just on this methodology. We just mixed together public opinion about possible trust and distrust in governmental institution, corrupted, not corrupted. By the way, corruption evaluation institution of as being corrupted very high correlated with trust and distrust in institution. But at the same time, we ask about experience, and we even calculated so-called indexes of corruption. You probably remember extortion, bribery index, efficient index, and so on and so forth. And we go with this data. We show it, and this became very, very important for designing and submitting program on fight corruption in Lithuania. And right now, for example, this map of corruption is a regular service that our special investigating service responsible for fighting corruption regularly organize every second year. So again, it's what we're doing, what we can be. But again, it's not only mine. It's our team. For example, map of corruption. I have to mention my colleague Rasa Lishauskina, Laima Zhelitskina. We work together on this project, and it was successful. Okay.
Okay. How do you imagine the future of criminology? For example, in 10 years. And what are the biggest challenges we can expect in the nearest future in Lithuania and in Europe?
It's a very hard question. I'm very bad photoreologist. So sometimes you can expect what's happened next year, for example. We're living in very, very, very changeable world. It's, it's especially if you look from theoretical point of view, even world of view of social change around the world, we enter in new period of development in Europe. First of all, it's a technological change. It's a change in our environment. We have new communication means. We create new standards for social communications, and this new standard has extremely big impact on social control, and contemporary social control. For example, there are a lot of research on panopticon system, or maybe synopticon system, that actually in another way in social control organized in observation, social control organized on controlling intentional or vision of object. But right now the panoptical, not panoptical, but polyopticon control that comes together with social networks, where we all observed everyone. So it reminds me situation of Middle Ages, when we have a god who actually was our supervisor. Yes, we can lie, for example, for our wife, or for example for our boss, but not to God. But today we are about the same situation, because we are visible. The privacy now is just under the big questions. Everything is in the network. It could be used against you, or could be used for your good. It depends. But you feel that you are not private in this case. And again, it's great new questions and new challenges. I just want to remind you how criminology came to the birth. Beccaria, it just want to rationalize social control. He says that the social control too much unpredictable, too much arbitrary. And we have to have some kind of border, and we have to have kind of agreement about ourselves. What is legal, what is not legal, how we can treat this, for example. But right now, it's new Beccaria. Vicariate 2.0, who actually again should establish some kind of rational background for new form of social control. Because right now, look, the person could be accused of doing something 40, 50 years ago, where the social standards, social control standards was absolutely different. Or, for example, who should be accused because of information that come anonymously from social network, and we accept it. It was impossible. For example, Vicariate says that, oh no, it's not impossible. No crime without law, without let's say this rational borders. Are we going to establish these rational borders? It's a big challenge for us. I believe it's really big problems. But again, it's another problem globalization, problem of new technologies, problems of artificial intelligence, that actually also comes to our problems. For example, intervention of artificial intelligence in law enforcement and decision-making procedure. Are we going to allow them to solve our human problems? So it's open questions. So, but it's challenging. We have to answer. Look what's going with our courts. They're overcrowded by cases, and the idea that in some cases we can do in a better way. For example, we advise you use artificial intelligence methods and equipments. Maybe it's a good idea, but what after? So it's another problem. Problem again, it comes from our knowledge that comes from contemporary biology. So it's also sometimes people say that okay, so we go to Lombarzo again and we go to the controls that actually could lead us to new Gulag or something like that. But we have more and more information about our behavioral background. And again, we have to understand, we have to figure out the borderline between social responsibility and biological, genetical determinants. So again, it's a question that comes to us, and we have to manage them. So a lot of problems. I believe that criminology has a lot work with this problem.
So, in your opinion, the future is not so bright?
I believe yes. Again, again, it's not bright, but you have to be careful with your future. You don't have to allow to yourself to relax and to think that that all problems will be solved automatically without your intervention and your responsibility for what you're doing. If you forget it, okay, all problems comes immediately. Never be in such situation. And Aristotle says that okay, for example, if his famous phrase that war was a peace. So you have to be prepared for fighting in order to keep the peace. So it's
okay. Professor, during your academic career, you had a chance to visit and work at various academic institutions and universities in Europe and in the United States. What kind of similarities and differences you can distinguish between European and American criminological approach, and how could both of them benefit from each other?
As a sociologist, I have to be very careful because my sample is too narrow. I can do it generalization on the basis of my personal experience. But what is a similarity? Everywhere I can find a very bright, good, motivated students, very bright and very good, organized and very helpful colleagues. But of course, there are different attitudes to crime, different traditions, and this tradition again belongs to university. Again, if we speak about Europe, I just mentioned before that in Europe, criminology usually affiliated with criminal law, and criminal law and let's say teaching of criminal law has its own culture, own tradition. It's not the same, like for example, like teaching in Department of Liberal Arts or sociology, for example. It's different. Again, if we go to U.S. universities, it depends what kind of criminology you choose. If, for example, it's administrative criminology, yes, it's a lot of managerial elements, and it's, for example, I believe it's sometimes it's very helpful, especially for organizing a law enforcement institution and so forth. But if you are interested in raising questions and now just on challenging structure, of course, go to the critical approach. A cultural approach is different. It's more provocative, more, how to say, not so standardized as, for example, this could be in another department. Again, it's hard to say, but again, sometimes we have to choose programs. For one program, it's better to go, for example, to US. For another, maybe to Great Britain. For other, might be in Italy or so. It depends. Again, what we can see right now, it's in the process of globalization, and that standards became more and more equal everywhere. Of course, sometimes it's a good, but sometimes it's maybe not very good, because there are some national peculiarities, and I believe that criminology should be addressed not only to the global world, but also should be addressed to the national tradition, national countries, and the differences are obvious, cultural differences are obvious.
Okay. Professor, you are one of those who proposed and later organized the European Society of Criminology Conference in Vilnius in 2011. Could you tell us what is your role in this organization?
I'm a member of this organization.
I'm a member.
No, okay. So I'm really not a big boss in this structure. I joined the society in 2002, I believe, so 3 something. It was my first time that I visited a conference in Helsinki. And I find a lot of nice people. Some of them I knew before, from our Baltic criminological network, from our inter-university relations. So I start to regularly participate in conference in some mini projects. And yes, it was ideas that it would be good to organize some conferences, not only in the well-known criminological centers in Europe, but to organize, to use the conference as a mean for criminological expansion in the areas where criminology was not very mature and not very well developed. So I like this idea. For example, if we speak about Lithuania, we have some tradition, criminological tradition, but it's nevertheless criminology in Lithuania is very, how to say, very young science. Especially having in my previous Soviet heritage, where actually it was not academic criminology, it was idealized criminology, so-called kind of Soviet criminology, where you are not allowed to seeking truth. You are probably seeking some values that actually already discussed by other politicians. So, and from this point of view, of course, development of criminology and establishment of new links with criminologists from the Western University and academic institution was a very good idea, and we discussed this idea with our colleagues. I became a member of the board, and we discussed this issue with Marcella Ebe, with Mike Tonry, with Julian Roberts, a lot of people. I just don't want to mention all of them, and they say, okay, it's a very great idea. Let's go to Vilnius and let's organize a conference. So I talked with my colleagues in Vilnius and say, okay, are we ready to accept it? Are we ready to organize these big events? That would be first conference in Baltic countries of this sort. Say, okay, let's do it. And again, it's not my merit. It's a work of our team. We have very good team, very good young, let's say, criminologist team. We belong to this team, by the way. So and I believe we were very much successful. And this initial idea that such kind of conferences could facilitate development of criminology in the country, it was absolutely great. It's verified, at least in Lithuania. Development of criminology after conference, immediately go up. It became obvious that criminology is a good science. For example, what you mentioned about our educational programs, it's another big achievement. No. If you look, for example, in Baltic countries, you didn't find any programs of this sort. For example, in Estonia or in Latvia, or for example, we have only one serious competitors in Poland. From this point of view, so probably not competitors, but they are friends. But nevertheless, they do about the same. So I believe it's a great role of European Society of Criminology for expanding of this criminology. By the way, we are very much thankful for the European Society of Criminology for supporting our bachelor program in criminology. And for example, address that we received from EC was very helpful in our discussion with the Ministry of Education in Lithuania, with our educational bosses. So I believe that it's a very great job. Again, it's not me, it's a team. But we just colleague and we do the same.
Okay, and the last questions.
Okay.
Criminology and gender. What do you think about women criminologists and how they have contributed to the field of criminological research?
Okay, so it's popular feminist criminology theme. So it's feminist criminology. It's wrote a lot of books, and again, it's a problem of power. So musculism and power, and where for example domination of men in society, at the same time could be observed in domination of men in academic societies. So, and from this point of view, of course, if we speak about gender questions, social roles are equals in this case. They should not be treated as a biological roles. It's obvious, and of course we have to this kind of equity should be achieved if we speak about development of science. And I think that what's happened, for example, in 19th century in criminology, of course, it really was man criminology. And please remember what Lamberto wrote about women criminals, and so, but his daughter was a good criminologist. So and and again, we have a lot of famous criminologists. Again, Gluck, Eleanor Gluck, famous research. She's excellent. Just so I don't mention contemporary criminologists that are women, and again, in this case, I might be share the same idea as ancient philosopher Plato said about guardians in the state. No, never mind who you are. You are man or woman. If you can do it, do it. So it's only only one criteria: professionalism. If you can do it, and don't use biological difference in this issue, because it belongs not to biology, it belongs to socials. So it's my questions about the role of it's so standard, it's so obvious. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the interview. It was a great pleasure for me.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time.